Hi everyone, it's Miriam from Miriam's Nature. Today I'm going to be doing a predominantly blue pour with a touch of green for added interest. Because I'm going to want some cells, I'll add a drop or two of silicone to each of my colors. I'll also be adding white to the pour, but I don't tend to add silicone to my white in case I end up using it as a negative space or background color, so that the other colors can play against it with lacing or feathering. As always, my paint is mixed 1 part paint to 5 parts Floetrol and a very small amount of water as needed to get each of the colors to a consistency like heavy cream. For this really pretty blue, I used Liquitex ink in Cerulean Blue, and because this is an ink as opposed to a paint, it's an acrylic ink, I didn't have to add water. This blue is Artist Loft Brilliant Blue, and because it's a pretty thick paint, it did require water. So it is 1 part paint, 5 parts Floetrol, and water. For this blue, I mixed Cerulean Blue and Aqua Green. For the green, I used the neon green color, but I added white to it to take the neon down. And also I added a minuscule drop of black. And finally, I'll also be using the Artist Loft Flow Acrylic White. I'm going to add a drop or 2 of silicone into each color. And I tend to mix my silicone in pretty well. I found that when I really mix it in, I don't have the problem that a lot of people have when they want to go varnish or resin their painting of silicone rising to the top. When I mix it in, at least this type of silicone anyway, this practically vanishes. I don't know where it goes, but I have never had to clean a painting before resining or varnishing when I do this, ever. Now let's plan our pour. The first color that I always want at the bottom of my cup is a light color. The reason being, whatever color is at the bottom is going to be the color that's going to be on the top after you flip your cup. So if it's a dark color, it'll take over and block out a lot of your other colors. So I want a lighter color at the bottom. And rather than just have plain white, I added just a drop of that and mixed it in, just so that it's not like white. Since all of these colors will blend nicely together, I don't have to worry so much about creating a muddy color because no 2 colors here would make an ugly color. So I can pretty much pour in any order I want and not worry. So what I'm going to do is not put 2 light colors together so that there's a little bit of contrast going on. A little bit of white now. I get asked how I know how much paint to mix for my pour. I'm going to be working on a 5x7 canvas. 5 times 7 is 35, so my canvas is 35 square inches. And I know that if I want to be able to cover my canvas, I want to have 1 ml of paint or 1 cc of paint per square inch. So if my canvas is 35 square inches, I want 35 ml of paint in order to cover it. But in this case, I think I want a little bit of white negative space around the edge of the canvas, so I mixed 20 ml. And I use these little medicine cups because they're perfectly marked already with ml marks. So it's just perfect. Now, if you're using a much larger canvas, you can get bigger cups than this that also have those marks. But you can also do for a large pour is get a clear plastic cup and then use these to figure out how many mLs is in that cup. Or 20 mLs in this cup and of water, pour it into the larger plastic cup, and then you'll know where that hits and make a little mark on that cup with a Sharpie, and keep doing that so that you have all the marks you need on a larger cup. I hope that made sense. You don't have to get it down to the last ml. I mean, you can be off by 5 to 10 even and still be fine. But that gives you a ballpark idea of how much you need to cover your canvas. A helpful piece of information is that 30 ml is just about 1 ounce. It is now time to flip that cup. And what's really fun is when you already see a little bit of cell action in the cup. That's always a good sign. I'm working on a 5 by 7 inch canvas panel. And that's just canvas that's stretched over a piece of cardboard. If I'm going to do a whole bunch of pours for fun, they take a lot less space than full-on canvases. Now, a lot of people say that these panels warp, and especially given what we do. When you pour paint, you are subjecting your substrate or surface to a lot of moisture. So that is definitely going to induce something like this to curl and warp. But what I do is the day after the pour, when the edges of my painting have started to dry and have become dry enough that I can handle them, I start by picking it up and bending the canvas back. It's always going to curl upward this way. So I'm going to take the canvas and bend it this way a little bit. And I'm going to do that just for a couple of seconds on the day after the pour when I have the ability to handle the edges. And then I'm going to set it down and let it to continue drying. Then a couple of hours later, I'll do it again. And I'll do it about 5 or 6 times over the course of the first 2 to 3 days after the pour. And by doing that, I found that I can get a panel to return to its original flat position. Just to show you, here's one. When I say bend, I don't mean like you're going to try to crack the thing, but you're just going to bend it a little bit, like about this, and just to get it to want to come back to its original position. And that way you can use these and not worry too much about the warping. Now I put my pour off to the corner over here because I kind of want to move it in this direction, and I want this area here to be my negative space. So I'm going to fill the negative space area with white where I think white's going to need to end up. But chances are a lot of this white will get pushed off by this paint, but I'm going to prep the area just in case and see where we end up. And as always, I'm using my pick to spread the paint. If you haven't seen any of the other videos where I recommend this, I discovered this while playing with marbling, that this is seriously the best way to spread paint. It is better than a palette knife. It is better than a paintbrush. You are hard-pressed to find something better. So if you haven't gotten one of these, I'm sure you can find them in a dollar store. Best way to spread your paint. I've let the cup sit for a couple of minutes just to let the paint settle down on the canvas. And I'm going to pick up the cup and move it as I'm picking it up. I'm going to tilt it in that direction. This is a very unusual pour. I'm not used to this striping, this almost like a swipe that happened in the pour because of the way that I moved the cup. I'm really liking this white stripe that formed here, so I definitely want that to stick around as much as it can, but stuff is going to happen. I've let this sit for a few minutes to let it develop and to see where cells were going to come up naturally, and to also think about what I want to do. Where do I want to edit hard edges like this? I prefer when they're feathery and lacy. What I'm doing is I'm not pointing straight down with my skewer. I'm letting it lie down so that it's parallel to the canvas, and then swiping some paint. And that way I get more of a wide band of color being pulled into the white. And sometimes just the marbling effect is pretty, and I don't need cells in it. And again, I'm kind of doing a little bit of a swipe over the white so that it's not just thin hairs coming off. Like if I do it downward like this, I'll just get a thin little line coming off, and I want more than that. I want it to be wide like this so that I get some cells happening within the swipe. And sometimes I want to bring the white into the piece as opposed to the color out into the white, because that can be really interesting too. Changing my mind about that and bringing it down in instead. And then when I do something like that, I look for something that's already in the pour and try to follow that contour so that the lines that I'm adding look like they could have happened with the pour. So here, when I bring the white in, I'm going to follow the edge of that little blip that's there. And then here, where I took it in, I'm following a line that was already there. This makes some of what we're adding or embellishing look as if it was organic rather than something that we forced. Now I've reached a point where I want to see what the torch can bring up. I'm not swiping all over like crazy. I'm just looking for little places where a little burst of cells might be fun. I love what happened here. Love this. I actually like that it didn't cell up, and I'm not going to make it cell up with the torch. I like this. I want to clean this up somehow. And for that, I'm going to use my tube and blow. Yeah, I like that much better. And the last thing I'm going to do is introduce a bit of white in some areas where I wish there had been more. So all I'm doing is picking some up off the runoff here, and I'm going to sort of bring it into some areas just to add more contrast and more character, if you will, to this area that seems a little bland. And I'm continuing to add small moments of white in other parts that didn't get enough white. And again, I'm following natural contours of the pour. I think I'm calling that done. I've added some white in areas to make some things more defined, and I've taken down some darker spots so that they don't pop more than I think they should. I've added a little bit of lacing to add some interest to the border, and I'm happy with this. It kind of reminds me of water and life forms somehow. I'm just super happy with the color and the little touches I got to add. Before I take you on a close-up tour of the painting, both wet and dry, I want you to see how little paint got wasted. That's it. That's all that I tipped off. When you measure the amount of paint that you need in advance, you save a lot of paint. You can avoid mixing more than you need in the cup and having to tip off a lot so that your canvas isn't too wet. You also save time with cleanup when all is done. And the best part is that in the long run, you have more paint to make more paintings, which is what we really want to do. Okay, so here it is close up. This is it wet, and you'll see it dry at the end. And I'll also show you the canvas panel returned to its flat state after the bending that I do. I hope that you picked up some tips and feel more empowered to enhance your pours now by adding personal touches to them. Remember, you're the boss of the painting, not the other way around. Think of the pour as just a starting point, not the end-all be-all. Have fun with your paint and save more of it too. Your wallet will thank you, and you'll get to paint more. Please share this video with your friends and groups. Give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it and would like me to make more. Let me know what you thought of this. Tell me what you learned, what you'd like to learn. Leave all of that in the comments. I'm happy to share whatever tips, techniques, and ideas I've got. So remember to subscribe so that you can gobble it all up. Thank you for watching. Now go let your creative nature shine. May the paints be kind to you. See you soon. Bye now.